All right, looks like it's recording.
Okay.
All right, well, welcome. So excited to have Katie Halverson with us today. And she is the office and event manager for SAFE, which is Security, Athletics, and Facility and Events, right? I'm not sure I said exactly right, but she'll be able to correct me. So, as we look at events and facilities, we wanted to have a professional from the field come in and share a little bit about her background, her experiences, the position she has today, how she got there, and of course, being a professional in that field, maybe a little bit of advice for students who are piqued, their interest is headed in the facility and events direction. We can wrap up with that. So, welcome, Katie Halverson. Would you mind just starting by telling us, as an alumni of Concordia, a little bit about your background as an undergrad and then going on to your graduate program?
Yeah. So I started undergrad technically at Winona, and then I ended up transferring to Concordia after the first semester. At Concordia, I was a student athlete, so I played soccer. I also was a double major in sport management and business management. And then I participated in basically everything under the sun that you could participate on campus. So the Champ Club, I was a part of that. I don't know if that's still a thing or not on campus. I was super involved in that. Student Senate or council, whatever it's called. I was involved in that as well. Meeting people left and right. And then I think in undergrad, I did probably 6 internships, everything from high school, college to professional level. And then after undergrad, I decided to go to grad school, partly because I finished early. And then I went out to DC. I went and got my master's at Georgetown. And from there, I continued to network, do internships. I got involved in sports nonprofit, worked with a nonprofit that used basketball as a vehicle to bring police officers together in a community where there's kind of a divide between the community and police officers. They also do it in countries of war. So they'll use it for like religion groups and try to show kids that, it doesn't matter where you're from, we're all the same, so that hopefully it can proceed as into the older generation. I also interned with the Redskins at the time, ended up getting a part-time job, which is it's part-time but full-time hours is usually how it works in the industry. Um, and that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today. Started with the Redskins, met a kid through grad school, and then he got me involved in safe management.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. I remember you being an undergrad, and I don't know if Katie knows this, but it is really common at Concordia that we get transfer students. And so being a transfer student and coming in after a year somewhere else, I mean, that happens, things change and your priorities change, or maybe your interests change. And so coming into a new school after a year is that's not easy. And especially as a student athlete coming from one team and switching to another and then jumping in. So I always was impressed with Katie because she would just jump in and I don't know, think later, right? Sure, I can help with that and helping with the student clubs and helping with student governance and being active in campus and all of those things helped prepare, all those activities help prepare you. But also the internship. So I'm glad that you mentioned that too. Just try a whole bunch of different opportunities and see what it is about working with kids that you like or adults that you like. Do you like to be on the field? Do you like to be more behind the scenes? So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So now, the focus we really want to see is you've been with Safe Management how many years?
So part-time, I started part-time in 2017, I want to say.
Okay,
Um,
2017. Wow.
yeah, so I'm about 3 years part-time, and then COVID kind of hit. There were still opportunities for Safe to work part-time. Um, we do have a contract with the Orioles, so during that time as I'm sure many people are aware, there was that bubble space. So we were actually in charge of the bubble, making sure that the access control in and out was handled properly. So I was doing a lot of that. Really anything to kind of get hours during COVID, but then I had an opportunity to move home temporarily to check in on my parents. So I ended up working with Twin Cities Soccer League for a couple months, and then Safe offered me a full-time job in 2021. So I've been with Safe full-time a little over 3 years.
Okay. And can you give us, as a company, can you tell us a little bit about SAFE? Because any student listening may has been to a big event, whether it's a concert or a sport event or a large whatever community event, and you might see people dressed in the SAFE uniform, right? The SAFE vests. What is that company? What's it all about?
Yeah, so I just to give a comparison, because I believe in Minnesota the current company is Best, BEST. We are a competitor of Best, and Best has a long history of being rebranded, bought out. It was Whalen, then it was West, and then they rebranded to Best, which is part of Garter's World. So they're kind of our competitor, to give you an idea of the basic general business itself. Um, so really, we are kind of the first people you interact with when you come to a venue. For example, for a Ravens game, we call it the BBZ, which is the bag buffer zone. Those are the folks that are they're in they're outside the perimeter technically, which is that we call it the dirty space, meaning that bags have not been inspected, people have not been cleared because they have not gone through any type of inspection. But we are looking for, you know, prohibited items that are not allowed to come in before they get to that kind of safe space area. Bags that are too big, they're not clear, they don't meet the, standards. Um, so we're kind of the first people you'll interact with on game day. We do the security aspect, ticket scanning, ushers, guest services. Something that's super cool that the Ravens do is they do a service recovery too. So we assist with that. So that means if you order something from the concession stand, somebody accidentally bumps you, you drop your food, you let our staff know, we'll go to the concessions and get you kind of like a free pretzel or whatever you bought to help make up for that. So we're kind of wearing a lot of different hats, but that's the basic gist of what we do.
Wow, that's a lot more than what I expected you would say,
Yeah.
right? So, and in our industry, because there is a shortage of workers, maybe Safe and Best, these different companies are starting to become concierge of a lot more. Uh, how do we get more part-time employees that can come in and help with not only security, but customer service overall? So that's great. Wow.
Yeah. And then I forgot to mention this too, but we do have two separate, it's technically one, but it's two separate branches, I guess you could say. There's only like 6 of us full time in the office, but we also have a 24/7 department. So we do 24/7 security as well for Camden Yards and M&T. So that kind of impacts our game day operations. But then with that as well, with that contract, we are also responsible for parking.
Wow.
So we don't physically park the cars, but we're responsible for making sure, tailgating, if people are tailgating, they have the right kind of coal, or there's no oil spills, nobody's breaking into cars, the general safety.
Wow. That's very broad. It's very broad. So yeah, that's great. I'm wondering for you then personally, what does it look like day to day? So like are your hours, I know they're not, but 8 to 4 Monday through Friday? Are you punching the clock and when you hit 40 hours you get to go home? What is it like to be a manager at a company like this?
So it really varies. Um, I just kind of explained before we started recording this call that we kind of just went through our crazy month here. Once kind of July hits, things get a little insane in the office between preseason with the Ravens, prepping for training camp towards the end of July, and then the Orioles are kind of in full swing. So it really varies day to day. Sometimes, you're in 9 to 5. This week has been a slower week, and my sleep schedule's messed up because of we had a 12 o'clock preseason game this past Saturday, so I had to be in at 4 a.m. because we're first in, last out. So my sleep schedule is completely out of whack right now. So I've been going to the office at like 4 in the morning and then leaving at like 1 p.m. So it kind of just depends what's all going on. It can really vary. And then it depends if there's an event that week or not an event. Prep can take longer depending on so many different outcomes and outliers. We had in July, so I'm also in charge of the Naval Academy contract. So July 31st, we had an EPL game at Navy. So Crystal Palace played Wolverhampton the 31st. And then August 6th, we had Barcelona and AC Milan at M&T. And then the 9th, we had a Eagles preseason game. So there's points where you're just grinding it.
And do you find that when you're ramping up for those big events and all of these pieces are, kind of pulling together, does your heart just race and you just love it? Like your adrenaline's pumping and you're like, let's do this.
Yeah, it's pure adrenaline at that point. You're running on maybe 4 hours of sleep each day, but you're coming in, really makes or breaks who you work with. Our office full time is very small, but we are a close-knit family. We probably know more about each other than we probably should, but that's how it works when you work together all the time. We also have a really great relationship with the Ravens. So, we'll go in and out of their offices and say hi and chat. The John Klein, who's the VP of operations at M&T for the Ravens, he even said during our weekly ops meeting during that AC Milan game and preseason game, like, hey, we're all tired. We're all gonna get snippy with each other. Just be aware. Don't take it personally. So those relationships are very important.
Yeah, I love hearing that. So, part of it is just loving what you do, but
Yeah.
it's who you work with. And then it's the variety that you get exposed to, right? You didn't take a job where you just, for example, not that there's anything wrong with it, but you don't just go into a high school and work in the same facility on the same high school teams every day, right? You're going into a major, large venues and you're helping with large events across numerous teams. So, um, I was going to ask you what you like about your job, but I think that might be it. I don't know. Is there something else about your job that you really love? Like all the years, think going through your undergrad, right? And you were really focused. You were a great student. All the internships you did, and then giving up at Minnesota and flying across the country and doing your grad program. And I know that's a grind. I mean, getting your foot into the door, into a door, your first full-time job isn't easy when you look back and you look at all of that hard work and all the things that you did, and where you're at today. I mean, number one, you're still a young professional and a female in a world that sports is often dominated by males, right? Is there something that you just look at and you go, wow, this is really worth it. I absolutely love this. Is there something about your job that you're really proud of?
Yeah, so a lot of it goes back to that people aspect. I actually have still on my phone when I was offered the job at Safe. He's no longer with the company. He decided to leave and go somewhere else, just wanted a normal life, which is totally fine. But when I was trying to decide between a full-time offer with Twin City Soccer Leagues and Safe, he called me and left a voicemail and reminded me that who you work with is very important and that I have been around because I probably enjoy the part-time staff. It's not just the full-time staff. I enjoy that atmosphere that Safe has. It's very family driven. even with part-time staff. So it's not just full-time staff. We work between 800 to 1,000 some staff on game day. Everybody knows who the full-time staff are. I probably know about 60%, 70% of names, but I recognize their face. So that's a huge part of it is
Wow.
that family. And then some of it is too the company itself is ran by a family. So Jim McIntyre, he's the guy who kind of created Safe, and now his oldest son, Hunter, is the CEO president while Jim takes a step back. So a lot of it is just driven on that kind of like atmosphere.
Okay. And that
Yeah.
that kind of leads us into the final question. And I had when I reached out to Katie about meeting with us, is because working in a company like Safe is something that we don't often think of as sport management students as a possible career choice, right? We don't even realize that this exists. And so, one of the cool things about Katie is that her company is across the country. I wanted to say worldwide. Are you worldwide? No, across
No.
the U.S. But for a student who might say, you know what, I born and raised in this one state, and I would like to travel. I would like to try something different once I graduate. What kind of opportunities does SAFE offer for students graduating with a sport management degree?
So to be completely honest, it's very hard to get in.
Mhm.
A lot of people that are full time stay; they don't leave. Um, but there is every year a full time internship opportunity, so you will be working full time hours, potentially more than full time hours, just how it works. But you're really getting into the weeds of the operation, the administration, how the ins and outs of an event work, how we prep, how we do everything post game. You're very hands on and involved in the entire aspect of that event. And then, depending on how well you are doing during that internship, can lead to more opportunities. So, our previous intern last year, she was great. We have a lot of different outside events and clients, like universities in the Baltimore area, UMBC, John Hopkins, Towson, you name it. Since she was doing so well with what she was originally given, which is recruitment, so interviews, training, the cleanup of that, we decided to give her one of the smaller venues. So she was actually in charge of Morgan State and like UMBC scheduling those out. She would schedule, I would review it, we would talk through the process. So just depending on how you're doing, there is opportunities for growth. And then after her internship, there's actually an opening in Arizona, so she got hired full time in Arizona.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
excellent. I don't know about you, but I get like intrinsically motivated. Like one of the things I love is to have someone who comes up and you can see their potential, and then you get to foster and mentor them. And I mean, they're doing the hard work, but you get to kind of push them and nudge them forward, and all of a sudden they're growing up and they're moving into these positions where they get to really shine. So congratulations. Yay.
yeah.
Yeah, you get to
It
do
was
that.
kind of funny because I worked the Final Four this year again, so it was in Arizona, and I unfortunately didn't get to see her before she left the Baltimore office because I came back to Minnesota to be with family. So that was the first time I've seen her since her leaving, and she was so excited. She was crying when she saw
Oh,
me.
I
Yeah, but
know.
she's doing really well. So it's
It's
nice to see people grow.
that it is, and that's kind of what it's all about, right? You see
Yeah, yeah.
potential, and I always look at students and I think, oh my gosh, there's so much gifts and talents and things that make them unique and amazing, and they don't even see it yet. And they start to, as those abilities, those gifts kind of flourish. Yes, that's great. And now you're in a position where you do it. So, all right. Well, I'm so proud of you. Wow, to have an undergrad that moves on and goes to grad school and ends up being a manager in one of these major companies and running all of these events. It's just wonderful to meet with you. So thank you for sharing your story with us today about working in office and events with safe management. We appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to pause the recording.